Story 1. The quietness around my local area and how clean everything was allowed me to truly discover myself. Story 2. It was fair that we all had to stay inside. There was no fear of missing out on anything. Social statuses were strangely equalized, which is something that causes me anxiety now. Story 3. I was completely in charge of my own schedule. I never had to think about other people's plans or do things that I didn't want to do for the social aspect or to be a good friend. Other than work, everything was up to me. Story 4. My husband and I really enjoyed the curfew, at least during the first 2 months. The weather was lovely, and it was a pity not to be outside, but we found happiness staying inside as well. The curfew would start at 3 p.m. We opened our windows wide and listened to the birds singing. As we live on a street lined with elm trees, we binged TV shows in bed, cooked together, and of course, read books. Those were lovely days filled with silence, introspection, and inner peace. Story 5. Zoom University was honestly the best era. It saved time and money, and everyone was actually productive. Going back to campus felt like torture. Story 6. I liked the anonymity of the mask in public. Not for malicious intent, but being hidden in plain sight was cool. Sometimes interactions can be frustrating. Story 7. I will admit that I thrived during quarantine. I feel bad saying that because many people dealt with terrible situations or faced difficulties. My favorite part was that people didn't invade my personal space. A couple of weeks ago, someone stood very close behind me in the grocery store line, and I realized it had been years since that last happened. Story 8. I didn't have to be around people. It was peaceful. School from home allowed me to connect more with my family. There was no traffic. It was the last time I truly lived in the moment and was in touch with my feelings. Story 9. Spending quality time with my boyfriend has been wonderful. We have been living together since the first year of our relationship, and being able to spend time together during the day instead of just going to work or university has been nice and cozy. I loved every moment of it. Story 10. The slower pace of life brings quiet and calm. In the UK, our primary lockdown coincided with great weather. Story 11. Not being able to exercise every day due to the weather makes me feel bad about my lack of a social life. Story 12. During that time, I was slowly declining, and no one knew. I lived alone and worked from home, so no one could see how I was deteriorating. My brain was swelling. In short, I don't remember much of the quarantine. Story 13. They only allow a limited number of people into Costco. It was amazing to have space to move around. I wish they still did that. Story 14. The total scheduled carefree timetable. Healthy eating habits were available and allowed. Story 15. How the population focused on personal projects such as gardening, home renovations, and spending time with children. Felt like a societal reset. Story 16. We were supposed to stay away from people, but that is when I met the girl who turned into the woman I married. Story 17. Not getting sick. After the lockdown ended, coming into contact with people resulted in bronchitis, flu, colds, and measles. Story 18. The work-at-home setup allowed me to spend quality time with my family, especially our little boy, who we thought might have autism since he was 3 years old and still not speaking. Surprisingly, during the pandemic, as we spent more time with him and talked to him, he started to speak. Story 19. It wasn't that bad. I was pregnant, and staying home doing my job was great. I did miss people, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world for me. Story 20. I enjoyed the extra money from not spending on going out and gas prices. I appreciated not having to wake up and start working immediately. The mornings were a bit slower, and I did not have to drive into work and deal with traffic. Story 21. The first UK lockdown was quite good for me. I was still working and the weather was nice, so I would get home, start the barbecue, and enjoy a beer. The second lockdown was more challenging, and we were somewhat exhausted by it. We were eager to return to some normality. Story 22. My oldest was sent home from college, and it was the last time I had all 3 of my kids living together. All 3 did online classes, my husband worked from home, and I loved it so much. I cooked and baked, and we called the kitchen the Corona Cafe. The kids and I went from daytime pajamas to nighttime pajamas. We took family walks after dinner, which was the only time we really got dressed. Story 23. As an essential worker, I carried on as normal and I loved it. Everywhere was quiet, and driving felt like it was in the 1950s. Not one of us got sick. Story 24. No one was in the streets. I still had to go to work, but it was peaceful and eerie to see how empty the world was outside. Story 25. My neighbor and I built a bar connecting our porches. It features artificial grass, Christmas lights, a bar top we made with a glossy epoxy coating, bar stools, and signage. She listed it on Google Maps under the name SofaTap as a parody of Sofotap, which is right across the street. We still call it Porch Bar. This is how we became really good friends. Story 26. Someone in our neighborhood had the brilliant idea to invite a different food truck every Wednesday evening. We enjoyed some great food. Story 27. I spent most of my time in bed or in my recliner. I had a liver transplant the day before the lockdown started, so it didn't affect me too much. The lack of traffic made it a lot easier for the 90-mile drives back and forth to the hospital for checkups. I really enjoy the improved health. Story 28. Physical distancing is important. I can't stand having a stranger hovering over me at the grocery store or breathing down my neck in line. I prefer that everyone stays 6 feet away. Story 29. No traffic. I was only hit twice in the first year of COVID. There were no people. I was alone in the lab focusing on my work. No one else was there. Story 30. My commute was reduced by at least 15 minutes each way, which was honestly great. I mostly had the entire bus to myself with maybe 2 to 3 other passengers, even though I take a bus on a route that is in high demand. Story 31. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel like I was missing out on any social activities. I have been working remotely and living a semi-digital nomadic lifestyle since 2015. I used to experience random fear of missing out when my friends and former coworkers attended parties, events, seminars, or had spontaneous hangouts 1 to 2 hours away from the city. Story 32. Getting closer with my sister has been surprising. We video chat every night and watch the same shows together. What started as a way to combat loneliness has become our favorite tradition. We still do it every Wednesday. Story 33. I was going to say not being around people, but since I still had to go out to work, I will rephrase it to not having people around me. It was nice to come and go as I pleased without many people getting in my way. I also found that eating out and ordering food deliveries, when they were allowed, tasted better because more items had to be made to order, reducing the risk of waste. Story 34. Spending days and nights at home enjoying the weather with my wife and dogs. I was temporarily laid off, so it was a relaxing time. Story 35. This may seem morbid, but there is a certain pleasure in witnessing the misfortune of those who deserve it. While it is uncomfortable to see people make poor choices, there is an odd satisfaction in being able to say, "I told you so. I have my own issues, so I wouldn't wish this on anyone." But sometimes we cannot help how we feel. Story 36. I live in Canada. When winter arrived and we still had to wear masks, I appreciated that they kept my face warm. Story 37. Not a thing. We live in a 1,400 square foot condominium that was perfectly sized for the two of us. The quarantine came along, and our daughter, who had been living on site at a camp, had to move in with us and her cat. I love my daughter, but she is one of those people who likes to have the television on even if there is nothing to watch. She also leaves a little mess behind her wherever she goes. Additionally, her cat and our cat were always chasing each other around. I was never so happy as when she moved back to camp after 6 months. Story 38. Less spending, no traffic, and queues with social distancing. Overall structure and discipline are maintained due to social distancing. Story 39. Honestly, the slowed-down pace of life offers no rush or pressure to go anywhere. Just quiet days, long walks, and genuinely having time to sit with my thoughts. Additionally, being able to binge-watch shows without guilt is a great bonus. Story 40. We moved to a new country just before it started. so I enjoyed exploring our new home without any tourists. Story 41. I worked at a hotel restaurant, enjoying every moment without having to work from mid-March until the first week of September. When I realized the extra unemployment benefits would not be extended, I secured a job in hospital food service. I live near a large park, so I spend a lot of time there. Story 42. I started hiking and lost 40 pounds. I discovered a remote desert park that, despite its beauty and amenities, including camping with fire pits year-round, grills, bathrooms, and a beautiful trail through Joshua trees leading to the top of a butte, was almost always empty. Felt like it was mine and remains one of my favorite places. Story 43. I'm kind of a loner anyway, so having not many people around was good. I was and am a civil servant, which meant I was considered an essential worker, although I worked in an office. Therefore, I did not get to enjoy the new video games or explore baking like many others did. Story 44. Being in the Army, for about 1 month my unit was ordered to stay at home. We didn't work much at all, but I was still paid and got to play video games. COVID-19 was difficult early on, but I can't deny that I personally enjoyed myself. Story 45. I was never quarantined and went to work every single day of the pandemic. My mother died during the pandemic because doctors would not see patients. They cannot treat a dementia patient over a video call. The pandemic was awful and the medical profession should be ashamed. The media should also be ashamed. Story 46. My favorite thing about quarantine was the video gaming sessions. Felt like I was back in middle school with all my friends again. I was 22 during COVID-19, so everyone was extremely busy until that point. Story 47. Not being around people can be challenging. However, when I was with them, I found most to be respectful of my personal space. I enjoyed ordering from the table when we were permitted to go to restaurants. Story 48. I loved how we weren't rushing. My place had a scheduling system where odd numbers went out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and even numbers went out every Tuesday and Thursday. It was great. Yes, it was slightly inconvenient at times, but being able to do groceries or run errands without many people around was wonderful. There weren't many vehicles. You weren't expected to rush with tasks either. Story 49. My husband fully understands how much I dislike being around people. He asked, "You enjoy this and would stay this way?" I just nodded and smiled. Story 50. I didn't have to teach. We got out on March 13th and never went back. I retired after that. I loved my job but was ready to quit. Additionally, I enjoyed staying home, and being forced to do so was nice. Story 51. Having many friends and surprisingly feeling very happy the whole time. 5 years later, I have no friends and am not happy all the time. Story 52. Restaurant staff, including managers, wait staff, and kitchen staff, were much more laid back and relaxed, which allowed the food to be of better quality since it wasn't picked over or overcooked. There were no children, making it a consistently pleasant and relaxing experience. I missed that so much. Story 53. Allowed me to work from home when both my dogs were elderly and needed someone there. Being present for their final days, when otherwise I would have been crying in the office bathroom, was a significant silver lining. Story 54. I went through a difficult withdrawal and got sober during quarantine. It was comforting because the whole world was isolating, so I didn't feel as much like a loser for missing out on life during that time. Everyone was suffering together. Story 55. That I could be alone and not feel guilty about not making plans. When weekends roll around, I always feel like I should be doing something. Otherwise, I'm wasting my life. It was nice to not feel that pressure. I miss it. Story 56. My relationships with friends and family have evolved. The superficial aspects faded while the substance remained. Our bonds strengthened, and our conversations deepened. The people who truly matter have become a priority, leading to a meaningful shift in my perspective. Story 57. I grew up on a farm far from anything, and apart from playing the guitar during Mass on the weekends, we spent most of the summer on the farm. I enjoy being around people and playing the piano at parties and at senior homes, but the COVID-19 stay-at-home orders were easy for me. Thank goodness we had a backyard for the first time in our adult lives because my partner would have gone crazy without it. Story 58. My grocery store had arrows on the floor indicating the direction of traffic in each aisle. It was great. Now it has returned to random chaos where everyone is unaware, causing major gridlock. Story 59. I had a lot of time to make progress on playing games or watching shows and films. Now, I don't really get much time or I'm too tired from work to do it. Story 60. I lived with my two friends at the time. The three of us would spend our afternoons in the pool relaxing, grilling, drinking, and just being lazy. We would also hike in the mountains for 2 to 4 days at a time, primitive camping and enjoying a few days away from everyone while appreciating nature. Story 61. It felt normal for the most part because I had been working remotely full-time for a couple of years by then. My workload increased significantly because our offshore team members were in full lockdown and most did not have home internet. Story 62. It was peaceful staying at home, and in the evening I could watch the press conference and then my favorite animator stream. Story 63. I felt amazing that a supermarket would be empty so I could shop alone. It was great. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.